Some fresh snow in San Diego, way up there in the mountains. I think the snow level was something around 3,800 feet, which is fairly low. Obviously, the higher you go, the cooler it gets. We had a lot of rain, turns to snow in the high elevations, so that's pretty to see. Down here at what I'm guessing to be around 500 feet is 60 degrees and finally clear. Happy Thursday. This week is flying by. We've got a lot to do today. Last night I drove home the Imola red car. I don't think I gave a report on that. So significantly better with the dyno rear sway bar adjusted to its center position. We could go a little more aggressive there. The unicorn reins in the front and fresh links in the rear. It is not 100% still. There is still something a little off with this car, which I'm assuming are the rear upper control arms that have bad bushings or bad ball joint ends, and they are original at 106 341. Due to cost, he's going to defer that till the next service, and the sway bars and links and stuff I just mentioned and the reins are kind of a temporary measure until he proceeds with that. So it is about ready for pickup. We're going to give it a nice bath, check all the fluids, wheel torque, all of that before we give it off to the customer. But he could be coming down as early as tomorrow or more likely next week sometime. Saturday I've got another mini trip. No flights, no overnights. Got to go up north and pick up another car for the client in Orlando. So that's exciting. Larissa and Kevin and I are going to do that on Saturday. Sunday's going to be a sleep-in day probably, and some biking maybe, as it's the last weekend in February. It kind of feels like Friday, so that's why I'm thinking ahead to the weekend. But today we're going to get Kong's transmission in, do a bunch of work on that. We've got to facelift the headlights. The tail lights he gave me, which he bought on eBay, they were advertised as a very, very rare E39 Hella retrofit kit, which would be very rare. Those are no longer available, haven't been for a while. I think I bought the last set a few years ago. So he paid a lot for those, something like $800 for those, and got them. And they're standard 2001 plus E39 tail lights with the LEDs on the side, but they do have the ballasts. So it's part of the kit. He got the ballasts and the wiring adapters and leads with the kit, but not the proper tail lights. And those are not going to work. So he's going to return that. He did include a set of the Hella headlights. One of them had, they're new Hella Euros, and they have a broken tab on them. So I glued that yesterday. That should be good to go today. Then we'll have to do the wiring modifications, get those in. I ordered a hood roundel. Somehow his hood roundel is missing, but the studs were stuck in the grommets on the hood, so that was really difficult to get out, but I did. So we're ready to install a new hood badge there and then rebuild the shifter today and all that fun stuff. So it's going to be a busy one. Good news, guys. Kong has a tranny. Took a long time, but she's in, and that's where the progress halted today because we've run into the next stop, which I'll get to in a minute. But transmission's on, bolted up in there, shift linkages in place. We did away with his cheesy little dual shear selector rod, put a regular one in, all new, everything as usual. So we started to work on the drive shaft and prepare the CV joint for reinstallation, cleaning out some of the old dirty grease, and we were going to repack it. And as you can see, the CV joint is not even on there because as we did that, we cleaned up the boot and found big tears in the original red boot. So talked to him, he said, yeah, it's already off, let's go ahead and replace it. It's only an hour now, it'd be like 4 later. So the CV joint is somewhere in there. The new one is coming. I have to overnight it from FCP Euro, which means I'll have it on Monday. The local BMW suppliers, they can't get any that are any closer than the East Coast next Friday. So 8 days, so we gotta wait for that. We'll put the CV joint on there, grease it, new clip on the end, and a new hose clamp. Then the drive shaft goes in, then the heat shields go on, then the exhaust goes on. Then we test drive this car a little bit. It's already got its new tires. The shift linkage is now done. We also worked today on the headlights. The glue repair was successful, so the headlights are installed, fitted well, working. He included the wiring adapters for this, and I see these all the time. I guess they already threw away the bags. I wanted to keep the bags to have the part numbers, but they're like 2 separate wiring harnesses that both look like a adapter to go from one type of connector to another type of connector. What we need is to go from one connector and branch out to 2 connectors, and no one has ever made that. I really don't know why. Assuming that the black plastic connectors are available in some capacity, it wouldn't be impossible to manufacture that. So obviously the pre-facelift headlights, They call, the turn signal bulbs are side lights, and there are 2 filament bulb, one to flash for the signals, the other one to be on in place of the halos. Then that changes for 01. The turn signal bulb's a single filament flasher, and the side light, or like the running light, moves over to the halo bulb. So they share a ground. There's 2 positive signal wires that just need to be split up. So that's all we would need. But I'm able to cut some wires and splice some stuff together and make it work in a way that A, doesn't modify the original wiring in the vehicle, which I think is important, and B, is completely, waterproof and using all sort of good connectors. Heat shrinking terminal connectors are fine. So those are done. Taillights have to go back, as I mentioned. We took this car, the 01 Silverstone, out for a little drive. Everything feels great, minus a slight vibration right at 60 miles per hour. So we got the car with good tires on it, but really ratty wheels. Sent them off to my sublet to have the wheels refinished. They remounted and balanced the tires, though that seemed to be during the crisis of all of the wheel weights are falling off. It happens at my wheel refinish sublet. It happens at Discount Tire. It's happening everywhere. So they're going to have to go back and get rebalanced again tomorrow. Then the Florida car, took this out today for a little drive. Things are feeling good. We had an issue where the fuel gauge is not updating after you fill it up until you turn the key all the way off and start up the cluster again. So I left the car disconnected overnight from the battery. I reset the cluster on test 21, drove it over there today, put the key in position 1, left the radio and the lights on, put 2 gallons in it, came back, and the level did move up. But the tank sensor 2, which is the left side code, did return. More annoyingly, now the airbag light is on. I've never even had to deal with that on an E39. Now I do. Airbag light code is passenger seat belt buckle resistance too high. So we got a visual at the wires, or at the electrical connector for the seat. Everything looks fine. I don't know if the buckle has gone bad. I don't get it. So we're gonna have to do some more research there. The BM53 radio died. I have another one in stock. We installed that per customer request, sold him a radio. Now the radio is back online. Now, this doesn't work. License plate lights don't work. And something else didn't work. The lights inside the trunk don't work. Take the little gator over here and squeeze it, everything comes back. So the wires have worked their way apart and are shorting out somewhere in the trunk, annoyingly. He wants to fix that himself. He has a whole bunch of connectors he uses, and he's kind of an electrician, so we're going to let him deal with that. And then Imola's going to get a good bath, and it's ready for pickup. This thing, we've got the new coilovers in it. It is still way, way, way too low. We need the wrenches that adjust the springs. And I guess they didn't even send the spring purchase, because we obviously took those off of these struts to put them on the other ones that are in the car now. So when we get the wrenches, we'll actually put some height in this and get it up off the ground. Lastly, today a new client came by. He's got a 2003 M5 in sterling, nicely optioned, only 120 or 130,000 miles. He has an issue where the radio was intermittent for a bit and then completely out. And he took it to several audio shops in the area, and they all wanted to put in aftermarket head units, and they just said, oh, they're so expensive, it's so difficult on these BMWs, we don't know what's wrong with it. They checked circuits and fuses, couldn't figure it out. So he calls me a few weeks ago, and he's like, hey, I was Googling E39 stuff, and I see you're in the San Diego area. Here's my problem. Do you have any idea what it could be? I was like, yeah, it's a bad BM53. That's what it sounds like. So he comes by today. I have the intent of replacing the nav radio module in the trunk, and I put the new radio in and still no functionality. So then I go through the nav computer. Everything feels good in the nav computer. He already replaced the DSP amp. That didn't fix it. So I'm looking at the only remaining electrical connector in the trunk that is kind of on that. Why are these all locked? That are on the iBus circuit. And let's fix that without a blue bus in the car. It's so annoying. It stays locked until you manually unlock it. Anyways, the only connector left was this guy for whatever the hell that is. Some sort of phone preparation wiring, voice control. I don't even know what it is, honestly. I unplug that, boom, radio's back. Plug it back in, radio stays. So something about this module was the problem. I don't know if it just needed to be rebooted or bounced, or if it's going to be a problem after it sleeps. So we'll see. I showed him how to unplug it, but that was the first hour of the day. And in the last hour of the day, I'm headed home. I'm going to eat, take a shower, and do the usual. Talk to you from the garage in the red sweatshirt.
That's from a liver run?
Not yet.
No. These meals I don't like.
What? Dude, this went beast mode. Said it's so deep.
I promised it would be the red sweatshirt, and it is. It is Thursday night. I had Shake Shack for dinner. I did a bunch more work tonight. Updated some client stuff. Updated some work orders. Looked at new features that have come into ShopMonkey. And I'm starting to build the CAN services in ShopMonkey for the E60M5 manual conversion. And this is going to be a timely process. I have two schools of thought here. Number one, I can make it all one CAN service where it's like, oh, someone's coming in for a conversion. Add job, manual conversion. And it would be like 40 hours of labor, 45 hours of labor, plus I forget the parts, like 186 different parts. Every single job is different. I would rather not do that. Because if a car comes in halfway done, or they started it, or they're supplying parts, that's gonna be a lot more challenging. So the way I'm gonna do it is to compartmentalize it and start with exhaust R&R, drive shaft R&R, transmission R&R, adding the clutch lines, adding the pedals, the wiring, the coding, the flashing of the DME, and add all these things separately. The negative to that is now when I have a conversion come in, I have to add like 6 different jobs, but I can set keywords for that job, like 2MA is the code for the manual, so I can just do that, type that in, and then add down the list. So I'm probably about a third or halfway done. This morning was expedited because I had to get the Chevy Spark back, which I did do on time. I got to bring my car home today, which was a big pleasure after driving the Spark and all of these half-broken customer cars. It is oh so nice to drive my own that is sorted fully, almost fully sorted. They're never done. There's always there's always room for improvement, but the one that I've been working on for 11 or 12 years is a pleasure to be able to bring back, and it's quiet and it's smooth, and it was just a pleasurable experience. So I'm gonna end today here. Tomorrow's Friday. Kennan's coming by the shop with the M3 for an MPI. That's gonna be on Cars and Bids before long. So he wants to get some pictures of it up on the lift and get a nice MPI written up. So that'll be tomorrow. We're working on maybe the Le Mans car tomorrow. Gonna work on Kongs more. We've got a bunch of stuff to do. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow on Friday. Night.